I completely understand why you want some concrete direction, because it really helps us, especially if we're not really experienced, just to have some kind of little helps, some little crutches of kind of how to go about leading a read aloud. So let me again just really emphasize, it's going to be a light touch thing. You're leading, and you should understand within yourself, kind of feel in your heart, I'm taking responsibility to set a tone here. People are going to, the tone is going to be set by me. Right? If I'm really nervous, that's going to tend to make people nervous. If I'm being overbearing, people are going to feel a little cowed. If I feel natural and confident and excited, they're going to tend to follow in this. And I know to some extent this might be a little beyond our control. But again, it's one of those things in life. It's one of the challenges of taking first responsibility in a household. Hey, I am seeing myself as getting this going and being the one that is going to have to think through what I do is going to make a difference for how they experience this read aloud. So, all right, a couple of very concrete things. Once I've chosen my text, have confidence that they are going to enjoy that, project that to them, and again, read clearly, try to feel in my heart what's going on, and feel it read it as though it means something. The main thing then is when it comes to the end in the kind of question answer. And here, look, you got to be yourself. You certainly don't want to try to be someone else. Certainly not me. Each of us is going to do this our own way. But at the same time, I'll share with you kind of a couple things of kind of my kind of habit of how I go about this. And I think I can point to some things that are a little bit more universal. When I finish reading, I pause. I don't immediately kind of go, how's that? Did you like that? It's a way of putting the proper punctuation on the reading to especially if there was a certain more weightiness or seriousness of it, to stop. I often, so as not to have to look at anyone else in the room and not to do a kind of phony looking up. As I ponder this, I just keep looking at the last words that I've read. And then maybe close the book and then just kind of ponder for a moment. This is my setting a little bit of an example, kind of showing other people, hey, we're not in a big rush here. It's okay to take a moment to think about this. And everyone's kind of then, it gives them the freedom to have their own experience, their own thoughts about, kind of what kind of aftertaste, what's that left me with? Where am I right now? See, this is a great segue. This is a great leading into now bringing our experience together. First, that everyone a little bit wrap up their own experience. Now let's start to move into being together in it. And so the thing I like about the pause is sometimes there will be someone who then is kind of anxious to jump in and start to say something. Great. And they say something, they share something. Maybe the conversation just kind of goes and you can just kind of take a back seat. Or maybe it doesn't really much go. Maybe everyone really enjoyed it, they're kind of in it, they're savoring it, but no one's really saying anything. What I tend to do then is say, something I really liked about this was this, right? And just maybe then flip back a couple pages and just say, wasn't this line kind of amazing? Don't want to too much impose upon their experience, but to share what I liked, I think is a reasonable way of inviting them to do the same thing, to share what they liked. Or I can, again, it's another good example by the thing that just keeps making me ask a question is such and such. I'm not sure if he means this or if he means that. You can just kind of toss that out I don't know, did anyone else have a sense of that? See, these are very light touch ways of trying to start a discussion. Again, the principle is I do see myself as something of a leader here, but again, not a teacher in a classroom. I'm not here to present my interpretation of the text that I want other people to understand and appreciate. I am seeing myself right now as bearing myself in such a way that will most facilitate our each having an experience of our own that then we can share together and share our insights, share an appreciation of what just happened and what can continue to happen by our thinking about it together. This book by Belloc is lots of collections of essays by Hilaire Belloc, and this one's called Hills in the Sea. And in here, there's a couple of essays of Belloc's that I use year after year with my students. And one that they tend to be seasonal. There's one I like to do around Christmas time called A Remaining Christmas. The one I tend to do in spring and summer is called The Mowing of a Field. They're a little offbeat. They're reflections. It's not a story, but it narrates some interesting things happening. So there's a little bit of a story aspect to it. And why don't we just do this? I'm going to go to the end of the essay, The Mowing of a Field, and I'm just going to read the last two short paragraphs out loud, the way that I would have at the end of having read this aloud in a group. And just to give you a little bit of sense of, I try to put a little bit of drama in. And again, this is just to give you a sense. Everyone has to have their own style. So you'll see how at the end I pause, and maybe I'll kind of do this exactly as I would have done it, were I with a group of young adults in my house reading this out loud together. When we had done all this, and there fell upon us the beneficent and deliberate evening, so that as we sat a little while together near the rakes, we saw the valley more solemn and dim around us, and all the trees and hedgerows quite still, and held by a complete silence. Then I paid my companion his wage, and bade him a good night, till we should meet in the same place before sunrise. He went off with a slow and steady progress, as all our peasants do, making their walking a part of the easy but continual labor of their lives. But I sat on, watching the light creep around towards the north and change, and the waning moon come up as though by stealth behind the woods of no man's land. Okay, so see that I included the pause at the end there where, as I said earlier, I just like to keep looking at it, to look up at people, to kind of almost demand an immediate response from them, I think is too intrusive. So kind of keep looking at my text, take a deep breath, maybe a little smile to myself. Again, don't be an actor, but be real. And maybe it's being unafraid to let show how this text is affecting you, the leader, in reading it aloud. Note how I have practice and I try to, there's certain cadence and different things that you read may have a slightly different cadence, and people will have different abilities to do this, and that's fine. No one's expecting something professional. Note how there, in the very last paragraph, there was a line there that happens to be one of my most favorite lines, and I know that already now before reading it, and so I do read it slowly, this kind of incredible line. He went off with a slow and steady progress, as all our peasants do, making their walking a part of the easy but continual labor of their lives. It's really a remarkable sentence. And so you try to read it in such a way that again, not in a way that you're forcing people to take that sentence seriously, but you just read it in a way that the sentence deserves That's the way I'd put it. And again, the more practice you have at this as a read aloud leader, you're going to feel more comfortable in doing that. And it might be as you go along, sometimes especially if you're reading a text for the first time, you read it kind of quickly, and then afterwards, right after reading, you realize, wait, that was kind of an amazing line. And you might, reading aloud, say, do you mind if I just read that again? That's, of course, a rhetorical question, because no one's going to say, no, you can't do that. So you say, okay, I'll just back up. Let me just read that sentence again, and then I'll keep going. Right? People don't mind that, because you're the reader. You're the one who's kind of guiding us through this. So having a good text goes a long way towards giving you a little more confidence, towards making you feel comfortable. And especially once you start to have certain texts that you've come to know and love, it's sometimes it's almost like, I want to find some more people who haven't heard this before. Although the neat thing is, I have students come back, or others that we've shared this with, that just, hey, can we read the mowing of a field again? My wife is almost always with me when I'm reading this out loud, and she consistently says to me at the end of that essay and certain other essays that we read regularly, I always appreciate it more every single time. And that's part of finding the right text, but that's where, hey, someone with a little bit of experience like me, I'm more than happy to share at least some choices that you might want to look at, and then maybe you'll share some back with me at some point, but some ones that I think might be a kind of no-lose situation where you really can't go wrong with this text or that text.